And there's now another twist in the tail. There are reports in the US that say President Trump has actually shot off a letter saying, and this is a letter to Norway, saying, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel obligated to think purely of peace. Will Europe use the trade bazooka? Will Europe impose counter tariffs? Joining me on the show, Ray Loker, author and security expert, joins me from the United States. David Willey is a former BBC Rome correspondent, joins me from Europe. David Willey, if I may, is it now NATO versus NATO, US versus Europe, just because Trump wasn't awarded a Nobel Prize? And what are options for Europe?
Very surprised by Trump's acceptance of the Nobel Peace Prize. They never thought that Mrs. Maduro would actually hand it over, because the Nobel Prize Committee had made it very clear already that they, as far as they were concerned, it was not transferable. So he in a sense, he's given himself the prize. No, in Europe, there's a feeling, I think, that Mr. Trump here has gone completely off the rails. There's no support for it. Here in Italy, the Italians are more opposed, I think, than other European nations to allowing Mr. Trump to take over Greenland. They didn't send any troops recently in this token landing of a few soldiers from European countries.
Because that's more symbolic. Really, how will Europe fight US with just 35 troops? Britain sent 1. Ray Loker, why is Greenland so important for Donald Trump? Important enough to risk the NATO alliance? Or does Trump actually believe Europe is all bark and no bite?
Well, he seems to be absolutely convinced that he has to fight for Greenland, and he's prepared even to use force. In Europe, this seems ridiculous, to be honest, because he's been offered an alternative solution. The Danes have said that they are quite willing for to send American troops should return to the bases which they had. In fact, there's a report from journalists who have been visiting Greenland recently, and they said that the former American bases in Greenland are all abandoned. They'd have to start from scratch again to rebuild them. So the Americans are as unprepared as the Europeans to do battle with either China or Russia.
Give me a moment, David. Let me bring Ray Loker into this conversation. Why is Greenland so important for Donald Trump? Is this more now a prestige battle? Is he trying to tell Europe there is no NATO without America, so it's my way or the highway? And can Europe actually do something, or is it all bark and no bite?
I don't know what Trump is actually thinking. I don't think anybody knows what he's thinking. If you've looked at the letter he sent the Norwegian prime minister, the things he put on Truth Social about the need to take over Greenland, it's clear he's obviously insane, okay? We're like riding in the backseat of a car driven by a drunk driver. We don't know what's going to happen. No one's has the ability to grab the steering wheel from him. He's a total lunatic and a convicted felon, and he attacked Venezuela and kidnapped. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to end with this guy? There is no U.S. need to have Greenland. As our other guest has noted, we've had bases there for a long time, yes, and we abandoned them. So they weren't that important. And if we wanted to go back, Denmark would let us go back. We don't need to own Greenland or possess it or whatever he thinks we need. He's a lunatic, okay? And all this talk about what does Trump want? What are the U.S. security needs? Who knows? He's crazy. He's just a crazy person.
The Americans have been there since the World War. Post-46, they've had a number of bases and troops. But David Willey, reports suggest that the European Union is in talks to potentially impose tariffs on about $100 billion, $108 billion of US goods if Donald Trump actually follows through with his threat to hit European countries with 10% tariff on the 1st of February. Will Europe, in your view, sir, use the trade bazooka? Is Europe on the same page on that?
I don't think so. I don't think that Europe is ready to do battle. Really, so far it's been all words and no real action. The Europeans don't really know how to deal with President Trump. Your other contributor here calls him crazy. Well, there's a lot of people who would agree with him, but I mean, I think his madness is a rather cerebral madness. He knows what he wants, but the way he's going about it and the style of which he's operating is abhorrent to most Europeans. They don't understand why a president of the United States should be openly opposing policies that Europe has been supporting for 80 years.
But is there a method to that madness? Is there a method to that madness? Does he have a larger game plan for Europe to fall in line? Europe already, Ray Locker, Europe already is now bringing up their defense spending for NATO. The Trump administration is now threatening 10% tariff, rising to 25% on selected European countries that are participating in this military exercise. Now, given this 15% reciprocal tariff, plus 50% on steel and aluminium duties, how much room does US realistically have before tariffs start stacking, to damage US importers and consumers? Or is there no thought given to that, sir?
They're already damaging US businesses and consumers. What Trump is saying basically is we're going to charge Americans more for European products because we pay the tariffs, not Europe. We're going to charge Americans more for European products because Europe won't go along with my crazy idea about Greenland. I mean, and that is sinking in the United States. People here know that this economy and the problems with this economy are Trump's fault, okay? And he's going to double down, triple down, quadruple down on what he's already done, and we're going to pay for it. And you're seeing it already with lower manufacturing output, lost manufacturing jobs. And remember, tariffs are supposed to help the U.S. manufacturing sector. They're not. Businesses have been eating many of the tariffs. That's going to stop. And more, you're going to see the prices passed on to U.S. consumers. So he wants to punish
the last 30
the
seconds I have on this part of the show, Ray Locker, is NATO as we know it dead or dying?
Well, it's certainly in critical condition.
Okay. David Willey, is that also your reading? NATO as we know it, especially when it's America versus Europe, NATO will not be able to trust each other once again, because soldier to soldier, you need to trust each other.
The Europeans, I think, have a much more sophisticated attitude towards the problems that President Trump has created. They are prepared to wait out, I think, to see what the election is, the midterm elections are going to produce in November of this year. That's going to be the critical time. Nobody knows really from one minute to another what President Trump is going to do. That's the
so it's a 9-month-long wait. Will a happy baby be born 9 months later, or will there be a bigger nightmare? Ray Locker and David Willey for joining me here on this India First special broadcast. Many thanks. When we look at the situation, NATO versus NATO, America versus Europe, we can only watch and wonder what next, and we'll be reporting that on India First. Many thanks for watching.